Hey guys, welcome back to Golden Reviewer. So today, Genshin Impact updated to 2.2 and it came with a surprise for all of us. It supports 120 FPS on iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max. So we are going to test that out now. Some of you might ask why I have a cable plugin. That's because a restriction in iOS. So if you do wireless testing, you can only test up to 60 FPS. To be able to see 120, we have to test it with a cable plugin. But I already fully charged the device, so the device should not be charging during the test, so there should be minimum impact. Alright, so without further ado, let's start the game and run our test. Okay, so first thing first, let's go to the graphics settings, and indeed there is 120 FPS option available. And at the same time, you can notice the FPS meter goes up to 110 to 120. So this is legit 120 FPS. But as soon as I started to actually play the game, the frame rate will drop back to 60. This is pretty disappointing to me, and I really didn't expect this. And then you can see if I open the menu again, the frame rate will go up to 120 again. But then as soon as I close the menu and go back to the game, it will drop back to 60 FPS. So what I'm thinking now is that maybe I enable all the highest graphics settings and it's just way too heavy for this device. And it basically start to throttle as soon as I actually start to play the game. And I think that's possible. So let's try to reduce the graphics settings, set everything back to lowest and see how it performs. Okay, now we turn down the graphics settings to lowest and only enable 120 FPS. And let's see if this iPhone 13 Pro Max performs any better in the game. Oh, actually it does. Do you notice the FPS actually goes up to 120? So I think my theory was correct. You cannot do max graphics and 120, it's just way too heavy for the game. So if you want 120, you have to lower the graphics settings. But then this 120 FPS experience is not that great at all. It's very similar to what I tested before in the Pascal's wager. You cannot have consistent 120 FPS all the time. So basically you will have 120 for about 5, 10, 20 seconds, and then the device will actually lock the refresh rate to 60. So your FPS will go down to 60 as well. So I think this is simple. It's just because of the thermal throttling. The device cannot take the heat, so it just decides to lock to a lower refresh rate, which makes sense as well. After all, the iPhone 13 Pro Max cannot even run this game at 60 FPS at highest consistently, right? So here I will fast forward the next couple of minutes of gameplay, and because this is so frustrating, I decided to try a cooler. Here I'll use the Red Magic dual fan cooler, which is one of the strongest out there. And let's see if with a cooler the iPhone could sustain 120 FPS for longer, or if at all. So I played the game for another couple of minutes after I put on the cooler, and to be honest, it didn't make much of a difference. As you can see here, the device still does not go to 120 FPS that often. The FPS will fluctuate a lot, and actually most of the time is still at 60. My room temperature is 25, which is not that hot, and after added the cooler, I think it's pretty decent environment for the device. Unless you want to play at outdoor in Alaskan winter, I don't know. So now my feeling is that this 120 FPS is not really useful at all. It might be a task or requirement by Apple, so that MiHoYo had to do it no matter what. I've heard people say that Apple requires the game developers to update their games to support 120 Hz, and if they don't do so, they might face some penalty. I can't really verify this claim whether it's true or false. I just heard it from one of my friends. But if you think about it, it might be the case, right? Otherwise, why does MiHoYo release 120 support like this? It doesn't make any sense at all, at least to me. If you are playing the game on iPhone 13 Pro or Pro Max, maybe just use 60 Hz and don't bother with 120. Just pretend that it's not there. Then I also have a good news, which is that the game actually supports the native aspect ratio on iPad mini 6 now. If you watch my previous test, you know that there is letterboxing on iPad mini 6, but now that is fixed. And I actually recommend this device is one of the best for playing this game. Anyway, that's all for today's testing. I hope you enjoyed the video, and see you next time.